Hello everyone, and welcome to Mr. Simplifies Tutorials. Before starting today's tutorial, I'd like to encourage you guys to continue using the comment section to recommend tutorial topics for this channel. Okay, so today's topic is Handy's model of organizational culture, which is a study in categorizing and understanding organizational culture. Now, every organization has certain values and follows certain policies and guidelines, as we all know. The principles and beliefs of any organization constitute its organizational culture. And this actually influences the work ethic and the approach followed by employees and employers in the organization. So it's very important. It's a very important culture, and it's a part of every organization that everybody works for. Now, if you're trying to understand why you've been more comfortable working in some organizations than others, you could actually use Charles Handy's model to understand what types of cultures you were exposed to in these different organizations that you were employed in, and then understand that not every type of organizational culture would actually suit everyone, and therefore you liked some organizations more than others. Now, there are essentially 4 types of organizational cultures as per Handy. It's power culture, role culture, task culture, and people culture. Now, we're going to look at each of these cultures, starting with power culture. Now, in this type of culture, power actually remains in the hands of only a few people, and only they are authorized to take decisions. Visually, this type of culture can actually be seen as a spider's web, where the all-important spider is actually at the center of the web. So the spider holds the most amount of power, basically. Now, the people in power can actually delegate responsibilities to the others, but the control of resources stays at the top. So the control of resources stays at the top, although responsibilities can be delegated across the spectrum. Now, these organizations can have faster decision making because obviously very few people actually have control. But they're heavily dependent on the people at the top for correct decision making and organizational success. Now, such organizations can also attract people who are power oriented, as you would understand, and who actually more prefer to take risks and do not actually rate job security very highly. Now, it is interesting that if the people who manage such organizations, if the people at the top get this sort of culture right, then it can actually result in a happy and a satisfied organization. But conversely, in rare and extreme cases, this type of culture can also become extremely autocratic. Okay, the next type is role culture. Now, organizations with this type of culture are characterized by strong functional or specialized areas coordinated by a narrow band of senior management. To understand this further, this culture can actually be illustrated as a building supported by pillars, you see, and each pillar has a specific role in keeping the building up. So every pillar is important to keep the building up, and it actually forms the foundation of the organization, really. Now, employees in such organizations have very specific roles and responsibilities according to their specializations, educational qualification, and interests. In such organizations, individuals are accountable for their own work and have to take ownerships of the work assigned. The efficiency of this culture actually depends on the efficiency of the allocation of work and responsibility. So you essentially have to hand the right person the right sort of job. The right person having the right job can make all the difference in such an organization. Now, such cultures are quite rewarding for people who value job security over power and growth. Now, the next type is task culture. In such organizations, individuals with common interests and specializations come together and form teams. And these teams are given tasks and objectives for the organization to prosper, essentially. Each team here has all the decision-making power to accomplish the task assigned. This sort of culture can actually best be represented as a net, wherein some strands of the net are actually stronger than the others, and the impact or influences lie at the intersection points. You see, where two strands come together. These are the points where the teams are actually coming together. Now, control in these organizations are actually retained by senior managers who work on allocating these projects to certain people and allocating resources as well. They, however, exert little day-to-day control over how the job is actually completed, how these projects are actually completed, or the allocation of the tasks within the actual teams. So these are responsibilities of the actual team leaders or the team managers. Now, this culture can work really well when resources are readily available for every team. If this isn't the case, then team leaders can actually become very competitive with one another to gain the limited available resources, and this can actually become negative. This can actually be a negative consequence. This can actually become counterproductive for the organization. Now, the fourth type is person culture. Now, this is actually quite interestingly a very rare and an unusual type of culture wherein individual ambitions will actually take precedence over organizational objectives. This sort of an organization only exists to serve and assist the individuals within it, so that they can further their own interests without having any overriding objectives or any KPIs. So this type of culture, if you want to illustrate it, can be illustrated by a constellation of stars. Each star here shines its own light, and to the magnitude it prefers, really. So if you look at the sky on a moonless night, you can see various stars, and each star is kind of independent of the other stars, if you know what I mean. Now, clearly, not many organizations can actually exist or function in this sort of a culture, because organizations will always have some form of corporate objectives or personal objectives of the individuals employed, and the level of autonomy handled to each individual here is extremely high. It might, however, be possible for certain individuals in certain types of organization to actually have that level of autonomy. Just that level of autonomy, not the entire culture, I would say. Now, such individuals, I mean, who do you think would have that level of autonomy? Well, individuals could be like consultant project leads in standalone government projects, or like consultant doctors in hospitals. Okay, so these are the four types of organizational cultures outlined by Charles Handy. And this concludes this tutorial. I thank you very much for your attendance, and as always, like this video, continue supporting this channel by subscribing and spreading the word. Thank you very much. Take very good care of yourself. Thanks.